They rolled a road over my grass like it had never been mine. Everyone called it common area. I had something stronger than common: paper. Paper with my name in ink can stop a steamroller. I smelled the asphalt before I saw the machines. A tar-sweet note crept through the morning, followed by the metronome of backup beeps. When I stepped onto the porch, 2 graders were easing down the green belt that ran behind our cul-de-sac, blades lowered, nosing toward my fence like curious animals who'd decided to bite. The HOA newsletter had promised connectivity, improvements, a tidy phrase in a tidy email. A dotted line labeled path curved behind the houses. I'd pictured decomposed granite and a bench. What I saw were men in vests staking orange flags across my grass, sighting along tape measures, nodding toward the place where my hydrangeas hid the irrigation hose. "Morning," I called, aiming for friendly. "What's happening out here?" The May foreman glanced up from his clipboard, sunglasses glossy as a beetle. "New access road," he said. "Board approved, 8 feet wide for emergency and delivery access." He tapped a boot heel on my lawn, on the exact strip I had paced, with a surveyor 3 summers ago. I could still count it in my head. 30 paces from the gate to the east pin, 22 to the west. A road? The word came out thin, like a wire pulled tight. "Right here," he said. "We'll be done in a week. Call the HOA if you've got concerns." Down the slope, Marcy, our board president, stood with a sun hat and a practiced smile. She waved at me. "Good morning, Elena. This will be great for the community." "It's on my lot," I said when she came closer. "It's in the common easement," she answered, as if reading from a card. "It's mapped on the original plat. We're just finally using it." I swallowed the reply that sprang to my tongue. Easement isn't ownership. Permission has edges, because an excavator coughed to life and swallowed the conversation. By noon, the grass lay peeled back like a bandage, and a raw brown stripe ran from the cul-de-sac to the street beyond. Neighbors drifted to their fences, curious and resigned. "They didn't ask us," someone said. "They don't need to," another answered. At the edge of the cut, I found one of my old survey markers, an orange flag the machines had mashed flat. I pulled it free, straightened the bent wire against my knee, and pressed it back into the dirt exactly where the old line fell. It was a small, stubborn act, like setting a teacup against a tide. But it steadied my hands. Inside, the house held the cool and the quiet I had chosen this place for. I slid out the manila folder from our closing day. Deed, title policy, survey, the community plat. My name on the deed still made my shoulders lift, as if ownership carried itself in the body. Elena Morales, Lot 12, Block B, Willow Ridge. I spread the survey on the table and traced the boundary with a finger, ink to memory to ground. The line ran where my orange flag stood. The plat showed an access easement 3 feet beyond my fence, on HOA land curving to the street. It did not cross my grass. It did not cut a road through my hydrangeas. Outside, the beeps kept time with my pulse. I am not fond of fights. I do not upset easily. But there is a very precise stillness that settles when something you love is taken, by someone who smiles while they take it. I folded the deed, slid it into my bag, and told the empty room, "Not today." Outside, a roller hissed. The house, suddenly, felt like a courtroom, waiting for its first case. By dawn, the stripe of raw earth behind my fence looked like a wound that refused to scab. The machines were quiet, weekend lull, but the smell of tar lingered like a threat. I set a mug on the counter, slid the manila folder into my tote, and told the hydrangeas I'd be back. On my way to the car, Mr. Carr from Lot 10 called over the fence. "They say it's an easement." I held up the folder. "So do I. Let's see which one speaks more clearly." The county recorder's office is where paper goes to become permanent. It smelled like dust and printer heat and 1,000 signatures. A clerk with a silver name tag, Dana, asked what I needed. "Willow Ridge, Phase 2, I said. Original recorded plat, any easements adjoining Lot 12, Block B. She nodded like she'd heard a version of this story before, then disappeared into the back and emerged with a roll of crackling mylar and a stack of scanned deeds. She fed the mylar to the light table. Lines glowed. The neighborhood became a skeleton of ink. Lots, tracks, curves, bearings. There, Dana said, tapping with a pencil tip. Tract C, common area, 15-foot non-exclusive pedestrian access and drainage easement. Note 12, no vehicular access except as approved by City and Fire within Tract C only. The pencil stopped just shy of my lot line. See, the easement rides the HOA's tract, not yours. I traced the legend, the tiny serifed words that everyone pretends are a suggestion. Note 12 read exactly as Dana said. The bearing distances put my backline at N89-22ZU15E, 90 feet to a capped iron pin. The easement hatch lay entirely beyond that pin, in the HOA's strip, like a ribbon laid on a shelf next to mine. Dana printed the plat and 2 easement deeds by book and page. One was utilities only, the other pedestrian. Neither said road, neither crossed Lot 12. I added my title policy's Schedule B exceptions to my pile and felt the weight of something that could bite. Back in the car, I called the number at the bottom of every HOA email. Sunrise Community Management, a cheerful voice answered. This is Kendall. I gave him my lot number and the short version. He gave me the long sigh of a middleman. The board approved an emergency access lane. Our attorney cleared it. I asked for the permit numbers and the signed plan. Silence, then typing. I don't see a permit in the system. I'll have to ask the project manager. Please do, I said, and copy me. I moved down the chain. City permitting. We don't have a permit for a new road in Willow Ridge, the receptionist said, and transferred me to planning. Planning transferred me to the fire marshal's office. A calm baritone picked up. Emergency access? It would need our sign-off and typically a 30-foot turning radius, all on approved right-of-way or authorized tract. We don't sign off on cutting through private lots. He took my address, promised a site visit, and told me to email the plat. In the quiet between calls, the word fight found a seat inside me. I opened my laptop and wrote, Notice of trespass and demand to cease work. Not lawyerly flourishes, just facts. I am the owner of Lot 12. The recorded plat places the pedestrian drainage easement entirely on Tract C. No recorded easement authorizes vehicular access across Lot 12. No city or fire permit has been produced. Demand, cease all work on Lot 12 immediately. I attached the plat, the easement deeds, my survey, and sent it to the board, the manager, and the project's generic email. Paper, assembled, can grow teeth. At noon, I printed 2 copies and walked the slope. The foreman saw me coming and lifted, his hands, palms out. Ma'am, we're shut down till Monday. I handed him the letter anyway. You're also shut down here. This is my property. He read the first paragraph and looked almost relieved. We go where they flag. You do what you gotta do. I posted the second copy on a stake by the orange flag, a paper sign in a place that suddenly required signs. By late afternoon, an email chimed. From Marcy. Elena, our council advises the HOA has authority to complete the access improvement. Work resumes Monday. It was so tidy it might as well have been pre-written. I felt fear flutter in my ribs, small and bird-like, and then something steadier settled beneath it. Authority isn't a word. It's a trail of documents. Monday would come. So would the city and the fire marshal, and, if needed, a judge. The road cut through dirt. The paper cut back. Sunday wore the smell of hot dust. The road scar lay still, but even in its stillness it nagged. An argument paused, not ended. I made coffee, set the deed beside the mug like a talisman, and began to build a wall the only way I knew how. With calls, letters, and something that looked a lot like courage. First, the title company. My owner's policy had felt abstract at closing. One more piece of paper I initialed until my hand cramped. Now it glittered with possibility. The claims number rang twice. Chicago title? Claims, a woman said. I told her, encroachment. By the association, unpermitted, no recorded easement across Lot 12. She asked for instrument numbers like a surgeon asking for clamps. Plat. Instrument 2009-014237, Book 57, page 91. Easement deeds 2010-03984 and 2010-03985. My deed 2017-020411. I heard keys. I heard intent. Open a claim, she said. Email scans and photos. If there's an encroachment that clouds your title or diminishes use, we may appoint counsel. It wasn't a promise, but it was a ladder lowered into a hole. Then neighbors. I walked the cul-de-sac with a folder under my arm like a gospel. Mr. Carr listened with his elbows on the fence. Rahul from Lot 9 stepped out, baby on hip, eyes tired and kind. If they can take yours, he said, what's to stop them from widening the green belt later? Marcy's house sat 2 doors down, blinds at militant angles. I didn't knock. There. I knocked everywhere else. By noon, I had 5 signatures on a letter requesting a special board meeting. It wasn't a riot, it was a chorus, quiet but in tune. Inside, I drafted a second letter to the board, colder than the first. It cited our state's open meeting law and the association's own bylaws. No board action outside a noticed meeting except for true emergencies. A convenience access lane, I wrote, does not meet that standard. I pasted the city's email confirming no permit had been issued and the fire marshal's reply requesting a site visit. I copied it to Kendall at management, to the generic legal inbox at the HOA's council, and, after a deep breath, to the city planner who had transferred me the day before. If they were going to move, they could do it in daylight. In the late afternoon, I carried a spool of mason's line and a handful of rebar to the back fence. I found the capped iron pin at the east corner by feel, down past the roots, a knuckle of iron in old earth, and tied the line off there, stretching it taut to the west pin like a violin string you can't unhear. The orange flag I'd rescued sat beside it, trembling in a breeze that hadn't existed until I noticed it. I slid "No trespass private property" signs onto the stakes. They weren't threats. They were sentences in a language machines can sometimes understand. Before dusk, I called a lawyer, one of those names you keep in a folder marked "someday" and hope never to need. His voice was dry, practical. "Temporary restraining order," he said after 5 minutes. "If they're on your dirt at dawn, we can ask a judge to stops. Them by lunch. But I'll need photos, the county plat, your deed, your survey, and any communications. Retainer's $2,000. Money is a math problem until it becomes an ache." I looked at the wall where my daughter's crayon drawings still ghosted under new paint and said, "Send the engagement letter." We agreed to meet at the courthouse at 9 if the machines moved. Somewhere between emails and stapling the last sign, a childhood memory slipped in. My father hammering a stake into the ground of our first house, knuckles chapped, eyes smiling. "Lines aren't just where you keep things in or out," he'd said. "They're where you know yourself." At 7, I had thought that was too big a thought for dirt. At 42, I understood. At 6:12 p.m., Kendall emailed. "Elena, the contractor plans to resume at 7 a.m. Monday. The board believes this is within their authority." A minute later, a second email from Marcy. "Please refrain from interfering with the crew." My reply was nearly gentle. "Please refrain from trespassing on my lot." Night came soft, then heavy. I slept in pieces, my ear tuned to an engine. That wasn't yet there. At 6:41 a.m., the first beep punched the quiet. I pulled on boots, grabbed my tote, and stepped into air that tasted metallic. The grader rolled into view like a patient animal. Behind it, a white pickup eased to a stop, the city seal on its door, followed by a red SUV with a gold shield and the words, "Fire Marshal." The foreman saw me at the line and lifted a hand, uncertain. For a moment, all of us stood before an invisible string tied to iron in the ground, each deciding what it meant. Then the fire marshal opened his door and reached for his clipboard. "Morning," he called. "Let's see what we've got." Chapter 4. Clipboards at the Fence. The fire marshal introduced himself with a nod, a name I immediately forgot because my eyes were on his boots. They stopped a hair's breadth from the mason line, as if even his soles could feel the thread. The city official, small, brisk, ponytail, badge on a lanyard, stayed beside him. The foreman shifted his weight, eager to be told what to do. Marcy arrived in a hurry that pretended to be calm. "Morning," the marshal said again, kinder this time. "I'm here on a complaint and a request for emergency access review." "It's not a complaint," I said. "It's a trespass." "Noted," he answered and glanced at my stakes. "You've marked a boundary?" "My lot line," I said. "Iron pins at both ends. The recorded plat places all easements on Tract C, not on Lot 12. "Let's look," he said. He didn't step over the line. Instead, he turned to the city official. "You got anything in the system?" She was already tapping. "No building or grading permits pulled for this parcel or tract. No fire access approval. No encroachment permit." She looked up. "I'm code compliance, Lacey. We can't have unpermitted work in a drainage easement, much less across a private lot." Marcy found her place in the circle. Sun hat crisp, voice smooth. "We're the association. The CC&Rs authorize improvements in the common area. Our council confirmed." "Show me," Lacey said without heat, palm open. Marcy blinked, regrouped. The plan is with our manager." Kendall arrived at a half jog, laptop sweating in a sleeve. "We have a board resolution," he offered, "and an email from council." He pulled up a PDF. Lacey and the marshal bent over the screen. The resolution had doodled signatures and a date. The email had inch-thick confidence and not a single instrument number. "Where's the recorded easement?" the marshal asked. "Where's the city sign-off for vehicular use? If you're calling this emergency access, you need 20 feet. Clear width minimum, appropriate base and surfacing, and turning radii we've tested. You don't have our stamp. You don't have a permit, and you don't have the owner's consent to cross her lot." The foreman raised a hand like a kid in class. "We were told the flags marked it. We go where we're told." He looked at me with that same relieved sympathy from yesterday. Please let this be someone else's problem, and I almost felt sorry for him. I slid my copy of the plat from my tote and laid it on the hood of the white pickup. The marshal's finger tracked the hatch marks of Tract C, the neat note that had been my morning prayer. Lacey took a photo, then another, aligning corners like she was framing a painting. "I'll verify instrument numbers," she murmured. Typing. "If it's as recorded, the road belongs over there," she said, tipping her chin toward the HOA's strip of land, a narrow ribbon just beyond my fence. "And even then, it needs permits." Marcy's smile thinned. "We're trying." "To enhance safety and connectivity," she said to the air, as if the words themselves could move lines. "The community voted on a budget for this." "The community didn't vote to pave her yard," I said. My voice surprised me, steady, not loud. "You didn't even hold a noticed meeting for this contract. We asked for one." "Okay." The marshal cut in, the peacemaker in a uniform that grants a certain kind of peace. He pulled a pad from his pocket and started writing. Lacey unscrewed a red tag from a plastic sleeve. The color flashed like a cardinal taking off. "Stop work," she said, loud enough for machines, people, and rumor. Unpermitted activity on private property and within a drainage easement. Further work will result in fines and referral. The foreman exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath since Friday. "Copy that," he said, and signaled to his crew. The grader's engine fell to a rumble, then a hush. For a strange instant, the neighborhood felt like a theater between scenes. Lights half up, everyone frozen, crew resetting the set. Marcy's eyes found mine, flinty with embarrassment disguised as resolve. "We'll consult counsel," she said, which is what people say when they want time to be right. "Do," I answered. "I've consulted mine." Lacey tucked the tag onto a stake at the cut's edge. The marshal handed me a card. "Email me that plat and your survey," he said. "If they want an emergency lane, they can come through the front door like everyone else." Neighbors had gathered. Mr. Carr, Rahul with the baby now in a stroller, two teenagers on bikes pretending they weren't watching. The baby blew a raspberry at the red tag. I laughed, a tiny bark, and felt my knees go loose with the kind of relief that isn't victory so much as a reprieve. As people drifted back to their Mondays, I stayed by the line. The string hummed in the faintest wind, a sound too small to carry, but impossible not to hear once you know it exists. Above the hydrangeas, a dragonfly hung like a compass needle. Somewhere down the block, a door slammed, then another. The world went on. My phone buzzed. "Title claims. We're appointing counsel. Expect a call this afternoon." Another buzz. An email from law offices of Hargrove and Bell, the HOA's attorney, subject line, "Demand to remove unauthorized signage." I smiled at its upside-down logic. The red tag flickered in the light. The paper with teeth had bitten, but paper, like roads, invites the next move. The subject line blinked like a dare. "Demand to remove unauthorized signage." The HOA's attorney wanted my trespass notices gone and the red stop-work tag respected as advisory only. It was such an elegant contortion I almost admired it. I printed the letter and underlined the phrases that bent truth until it squeaked. My phone rang before the ink dried. "Elena? I'm Tony Ames, counsel appointed by your title insurer." His voice had the steady gravel of a man who had, said "Your Honor" more times than hello. "I've reviewed the plat and easements. You're clean. If they step on that dirt again, we're seeking a TRO. Frankly, we should seek one now." He paused. "Are you up for court this afternoon?" The question found the part of me still 12 years old and shy. But behind it stood the orange flags, the humming string, the hydrangeas with their bruised leaves. "Yes," I said. "I'm up for it." We met on the courthouse steps at 1. The building was stubbornly beige, the kind of civic rectangle that makes you feel small and protected at the same time. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over scuffed floors. We passed a bailiff with a haircut that never goes out of style. In the gallery, a woman whispered over a stack of photos. A man stared at his hat like it might testify for him. Tony slid a thin binder into my hands. "Your affidavit. You'll confirm you took these photos and that this is the recorded plat. And your survey." He looked at me over his glasses. "We don't need you to be thunder, we just need you to be true." Case after case drifted past. Someone's fence, someone's barking dog. Then the clerk called, "Morales v. Willow Ridge Homeowners Association." It sounded strange. My name turned into a verses. We stood. The HOA's counsel, sleek hair, sharper heels, rose on the other side. I glanced over my shoulder and caught sight of Mr. Carr and Rahul slipping into the back row. Rahul lifted the baby's bottle like a toast. Tony led. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward property encroachment. The recorded plat and easement. Deeds place all access on the HOA's Tract C. There is no recorded easement across my client's Lot 12, yet the association began cutting a road across her yard without permits. We ask for a temporary restraining order preventing any further entry or construction on Lot 12 and requiring preservation of the status quo. The judge, a woman with kind eyes and a stack of sticky notes arrayed like flags, turned to the HOA's counsel. Ms. Bell smiled with the confidence of someone who has never had her yard peeled open. Your Honor, the association acted within its authority to improve the community's common areas and ensure emergency access. The work is minimal and ultimately benefits all residents, including Ms. Morales. Any harm is monetary and remediable. The judge tapped a pen, the lightest metronome. Do you have a recorded easement across the plaintiff's lot? Ms. Bell's smile tightened. The CC&Rs grant broad authority to the association. That's not my question, the judge said gently. Do you have a recorded easement? A beat. No, Your Honor. Tony slid the plat onto the lectern. Lines and hatch marks under courtroom lights looked almost holy. Note 12, he said, fingertips steady. Vehicular use by city and fire approval within Track C only. The city has issued a stop work order. Fire has not approved. The judge looked at me. Ms. Morales, can you confirm these are true and accurate copies of your deed, the recorded plat, and your survey? My voice surprised me again, small but unshaking. Yes, Your Honor. I took the photos this weekend. The machines were on my grass. Ms. Bell tried again, softer now. Your Honor, the board believes this access is critical. We will pursue appropriate permissions promptly, and we ask that the court not hamstring necessary safety measures. The judge's eyebrows lifted, two careful arches. By allowing you to continue trespassing? A ripple of muffled laughter cracked the room and vanished. She stacked our papers into a tidy pile. The standard for a TRO is likelihood of success, irreparable harm, and balance of equities. The plaintiff has shown a clear likelihood of success. The documents are unambiguous. Irreparable harm is present when land is altered. The balance, well, the HOA may pursue permits and easements through proper channels. They may not unilaterally pave an owner's lot. She signed with a pen that whispered, Temporary restraining. Order granted. No entry onto Lot 12 by the association or its contractors. Preserve existing conditions. We'll set a preliminary injunction hearing in 2 weeks. As the clerk stamped the order, something in my chest loosened so suddenly it felt like tears. I blinked hard at the ceiling tiles. Tony touched my elbow, a human punctuation mark. Good, he said simply. Now we protect and we plan. In the hall, Ms. Bell offered me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The association is willing to discuss an easement purchase, she said. A fair price. The number sat between us like a coin on the sidewalk. Bright, tempting, not mine to pocket. I'm willing to discuss respect, I said. Start with restoring my yard. Then we'll talk about your road on your land. Outside, afternoon heat pooled on the steps. Rahul wheeled the stroller down, awkward and grinning. You did it, he said. I shook my head. We stopped it. There's a difference. In my bag, the TRO's paper edge pressed into my palm. A small, sharp reminder that lines hold because people choose to hold them. Behind us, the courthouse doors sighed shut, and the city moved like water around a rock. Tomorrow, the board would meet. Tomorrow, neighbors would speak. Tonight, I'd stand at the Mason line and listen to the faint humming string, a song I finally recognized as my own. The meeting notice went up on the mailbox cluster like a storm warning. Special board meeting. Access improvement discussion. Monday, 7 p.m., clubhouse. The paper flapped in a breeze that smelled like cut grass and new worry. By 6:30, folding chairs filled the room, knees nearly touching, the air conditioning working hard against body heat and August. The walls wore framed prints of trees that have never existed. The table up front wore pitchers of water. and the kind of microphones that make ordinary voices sound like pronouncements. Kendall called it to order, voice a little too loud. Marcy sat in the middle, gavel near her hand like a talisman. Two other directors flanked her, faces set in that neutral public mask you practice in the mirror. Ms. Bell from the law firm took the seat to their left. Tony slid into a chair beside me, his leather folders squared to the edge like everything in his life had corners. "Thank you for coming," Marcy began, smoothing a page that did not need smoothing. "We're here to discuss the access improvement and next steps. We want a safe, connected community." A hand shot up. Mr. Carr, polite as a quiver. "Did you have a permit?" he asked. "No preamble?" "We were in the process," Ms. Bell said. Lacey from Code Compliance stood up at the back like an unexpected witness. "No permit application was filed," she said without drama. "We placed a stop work order. It stands." Murmurs carried through the room like a soft storm crossing a field. In my lap, I felt the edge of the TRO against my palm. Paper. Quiet, with a voice when you needed it. Tony rose. "I represent Ms. Morales," he said. "The court has ordered no further entry or work on Lot 12. If the association wishes to pursue access within its own tract, it can, by applying for permits, obtaining fire approval if required, and complying with its own governing documents. There is no recorded easement across my client's lot. There will not be. What my client is asking for tonight is simple. Restore her yard, withdraw from her land, and do your process in daylight." A director I barely knew, Michael, I think, the treasurer, cleared his throat. "I move to rescind the portion of the contract that involves any work on Lot 12, he said, eyes on the paper, to restore Lot 12 to pre-existing condition under the owner's review, and to direct management to work with the city and fire on a pedestrian-only path within, Track C if permitted, and," he paused, courage collecting mid-sentence, "to schedule a membership forum before any further construction." Silence sat for a beat, surprised. Then another director, Shelley, seconded. Marcy's fingers grazed the gavel, then lifted away. "Discussion?" she asked, brittle. A woman from the far side of the room, new mom, messy bun, sleepless eyes, stood with her baby balanced expertly on one hip. "I want a walking path," she said, "but I don't want to wake up to graders in my yard." This was wrong. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't have to. We voted with our faces as much as our hands. The motion passed, 3-2. A small sound rose. A sigh, a chuckle, the weight of a room exhaling. Marcy gave the gavel a tap too quick. To be ceremonial. "Motion carries," she said, and the words loosened the knot behind my ribs a degree I hadn't thought possible. After the meeting, Ms. Bell approached me with the polite smile of a person who has lost and still has somewhere to be. "We'll coordinate restoration," she said. "We'd like a mutual release once it's complete." Tony nodded. "We'll sign a boundary acknowledgement," he said. "Recorded, no future encroachments, fees and costs to my client." She hesitated, then inclined her head. "Send the draft." 2 days later, the contractor came back with topsoil instead of cold mix, with a sod cutter instead of a roller. The foreman walked the scar with me, hat in his hands. "We cut shallow," he said, apologetic. "We'll fix the irrigation. We'll bring mature hydrangeas, not sticks." He looked young suddenly, the way men do when they've been given a bad map and told to drive it. "I'm sorry," he added, and the apology landed like rain. They worked carefully. The trench softened under new soil. The irrigation coughed and then cleared. They tucked root balls into earth with the tenderness of midwives. I knelt and pressed the dirt tight, palm to ground, the way my father had taught me. An old coin turned. Up in the soil, a state quarter, New Mexico, 2008, and I laughed aloud at the smallest blessing. When the last strip of sod settled, The yard looked not exactly as it had. Nothing returns as if it never happened, but like a healed place you would choose anyway. Tony emailed the settlement for signature, the HOA acknowledging in recorded documents that the boundary was where the pins said it was, a covenant not to encroach, a commitment to follow, permitting for any path within Tract C, payment for restoration, and a portion of my fees. We signed. The clerk recorded. The instruments clinked into the public record like keys on a hook where you can find them in the dark. Weeks later, an orange mesh fence went up along the HOA's strip. This time there were notice boards, a permit number, a schematic posted with the ink still smelling slightly sweet. The path would be 5 feet wide, decomposed granite, with a gate for the fire department at the street and a turning template the marshal had initialed. Neighbors came by, pointed, approved, argued about the color of benches. It felt, improbably, like a community doing a thing together. On a Sunday morning bright enough to make you believe in simple stories, I carried the mason line to the back fence. The string had hummed me through fear and fury. Now it felt like a note you can release. Once you learn the song. I wound it into a neat spool and set it on the shelf with the orange flag and the state quarter, small artifacts of a boundary that had held. Rahul let his daughter toddle along the new path, her hands out like a tightrope walker's. Mr. Carr waved from his deck. Marcy passed by with a paper cup of coffee, eyes lowered, then lifted. "Nice hydrangeas," she said, and I heard in it something like a truce. "Thanks," I answered. It wasn't forgiveness. It was an acknowledgement of weather passing. That night, with the windows open, the house breathed again the way a house should. I lay in the quiet and thought of my father's steak, the way he'd said lines tell you who you are. I had thought a line would separate me from my neighbors. Instead, it drew the shape of us, owner and board, city and crew, all the messy pieces that make a place. Roads don't always end where they start. Sometimes they learn to bend. Sometimes they stop where they should. And sometimes a woman stands on her grass with paper in her hand and reminds the world that ink, when it's true, is stronger than asphalt. If this story resonated, subscribe to HOA USA Stories, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and share it to help more homeowners across the U.S.